And I would be then presenting myself as a speaker today. I'm a medical doctor and a lifestyle medical medicine physician. And I lead medical and science work at Falsetto. And my main interest is in the space is between symptoms and systems. When sleep, fatigue, anxiety, pain, gut symptoms, and autonomic complaints do not really fit into one specialization. So at Falsetto I work turning those clinical patterns into research questions, and what matters clinically, I'm asking like what matters clinically and what physiology we can measure, and what evidence we need before making strong claims. So that's the lens that I'm bringing in today. And maybe Vitalijus, you want to also tell a word about yourself?
Yeah, but like Mari said, I'm the founder. I'll speak more a little bit about the business, but also about the future, where we are going. I think it's quite interesting space, and it will be quite interesting to listen about this space because it's quite new science of stress and stress resilience, let's say. We're even saying stress fitness in our company. So I will talk a little bit more about the future and what we build, let's say, and we are going to where we are going in the nearest, let's say, few years.
Perfect. So today's session, as mentioned, is about stress, and I want to approach stress through a little bit different lens, through recovery lens. And most people already know what stress feels like. The more interesting question for us is what happens after the stress exposure. We believe that this topic is really relevant for biohacking, for medicine, for neurotechnology. And we will look how stress affects the body, why the vagus nerve is such an important body-brain pathway, and how neuromodulation may become part of the next generation of tools for stress and recovery tracking. In this slide, you see a hero. We will be referring back to this person that you see on the slide a lot of times. And it is on the slide because this person is someone that I have seen in my clinical practice way too many times. A person a lot of times comes in with poor sleep, with fatigue, with anxiety, feeling wired, gut symptoms, etc. And in healthcare, this often gets separated into different tracks. So sleep is one track, mood is another track, that is another track, etc. But very often, we believe that very often this is not 5 unrelated disorders. And it is more likely that these disorders are the symptoms of one system that is not working properly, and we're going to talk about that. So today flows in kind of a storyline. Stress is not only about exposure. Stress is also about whether the body returns back after the demand. We will move from stress to failed recovery, then into nervous system, the vagus nerve, and then into neuromodulation itself, and finally we will present Falsetto and the science behind it. And then afterwards, Vitalijus is gonna translate how science can become a venture. Before we go into mechanisms, training, and technology, I want to start changing how we define stress. In everyday language, we use stress for way too many things, and we can mean an event itself, We sometimes mean a feeling, sometimes we mean a body reaction, or sometimes we mean a longer-term burden that builds up over time. And scientifically, these are not the same things. And so yeah, in this section, I want to separate stress into 3 parts. And yeah, this is like a basic map for us for the whole talk. So as you see here, stress is a demand. It can be a deadline, a difficult conversation. For some people, it would be pain, sleep loss, etc. And stress response is how the body mobilizes to meet that demand. So attention shifts, heart rate and breathing may change, hormones may shift, energy becomes more available. But after the challenge, the body should not stay in the same activated mode. It needs to come back down to the homeostasis. And this is the 3rd part, the recovery. When the body starts coming down, how fast it returns, whether it returns fully, and whether there is any remaining symptoms after that. So yeah, it's important to separate the stressor, the response, and the recovery trajectory. And yeah, here I want just to go straight into example. We have all been, for example, in a traffic jam, and some people meet at like same demand by just sitting there, being there, and experiencing an unpleasant feeling of being in a traffic jam. However, some people would go mad, crazy, staying in the same traffic jam. So the question is why? And the way I like to think about it is that people who are calm about the same trigger, they are likely to have low prior load. So the system have more capacity to bring on a demand, a challenge. While if we move now a little bit down the scale, we see that people with more accumulated demand, meaning they probably have slept not so well that night, maybe they have some demanding things happening, issues, they are not starting at the calm nervous system, at the baseline. They are starting with already accumulated demand, so therefore the stressor adds up to a nervous system that is already active. This is why we have such a different response. And this slide, in a way, closes the first act. So basically, stress tells us what has happened. Stress response tells us how the body has mobilized itself. And recovery tells us whether the system returned back to the baseline. And recovery may be the most informative part of the signal, actually, because it shows us the speed of us returning to the baseline, the completeness of the return to the baseline, and whether any residual load is carried into the next moment. And yeah, I would like to be asking the question not like how stressed is someone, but changing it to asking what is their recovery trajectory. And so the next question is more biological. What does the body activate under the challenge, and what happens when we cannot downshift cleanly after activation? So this is the chapter we're going to talk about. So when the body detects a demand or a threat, it activates it does not activate one single system. It activates several different pathways. So one pathway is actually fast. It is the autonomic pathway, the sympathetic activation. This happens within seconds to minutes. Heart rate rises, blood pressure rises, breathing changes, blood flow redirects itself, etc. And this is really useful because if you need to run, you need to perform, you need to operate, defend yourself, and make like really fast decisions, you want the system to work. And the second pathway is actually slower, and this is the HPA axis pathway. So the hypothalamus signals the pituitary gland, and pituitary gland signals the adrenal glands, and cortisol is being released. And cortisol itself actually helps body to adapt when the challenge is lasting longer. So yeah, it supports with the energy availability, vigilance, and metabolic coordination. And yeah, this slide shows the difference between an adaptive stress response and a costly one. So in the top row, there is a challenge. The body activates itself, then we respond, and then ideally recovery happens and the system returns back to the baseline. And this is the healthy adaptation. In this case, stress can even be strengthening. So the person needs the challenge, the system recovers, we build capacity, and this is adaptation. And the bottom row, the challenges keep on coming. Activation repeats. Recovery is incomplete, and the system never really fully returns to homeostasis. Over time, a wear accumulates, so the difference is not really stress versus no stress. The difference is whether recovery after a challenging event is complete or not. And yeah, when the body is under demand, it mobilizes systems. So when the demand is over, recovery means these systems have to switch from mobilization back to restoration. So autonomic activity needs to settle. So meaning heart rate, HRV, breathing, blood pressure. Then endocrine signaling also needs to terminate properly. Immune signaling needs to terminate properly. Metabolism needs to restore energy allocation, and sleep needs to recalibrate the system overnight. So that's the output. Emotionally, autonomically, and hormonally, we are back to the baseline. So recovery is not just resting, as we often think, or just being calm. Actually, recovery is an active biological process. So yeah, I have divided recovery into 3 operations: termination, resolution, and recalibration. So first, of course, so that we can recover, stress, the trigger needs to terminate itself. Then in resolution, the body needs to stop sending inflammatory signals so that the resolution can happen. And recalibration, so the system needs to update the baseline. So this is where sleep is happening, rhythm is being restored, and the body basically updates itself. So now we can ask what happens when activation actually outlasts the challenge. So a lot of times the stressor may be gone, but we feel still wired. And this is in a way a learned pattern from our nervous system. Is if we do not give enough time for ourselves to recalibrate and calm down and take it easy, and challenges that keep on coming, the system can forget how to recalibrate and adapt to a new baseline. And this is yeah, like referring now to what we have talked about in the first act. That people are just then starting to be at the higher preload place. And one system where this is actually very important is the inflammatory control. This is why I want to talk about cortisol. And cortisol is often treated like a villain, like we hear it all over. But cortisol is actually essential, and it helps us to wake up, to mobilize, to respond to a challenge, regulate inflammation, and coordinate metabolism. So the problem is not cortisol itself. The problem is timing and feedback. So a healthy cortisol response has an onset, a peak, termination, and a rhythm. So it rises when it's needed, switches after the challenge, and stays aligned with the day-night cycle. And you can see it on the slide. However, when activation is repeated or poorly terminated, that rhythm can become prolonged, flattened, or mistimed. And the system loses, like that, the regulatory precision. And that matters because cortisol is one of the major signals that body uses to regulate inflammation. So yeah, you can see it here. As you know, cortisol is actually anti-inflammatory signal. So a healthy cortisol response helps restrain immune activity through glucocorticoid receptors. But if signaling is repeated, prolonged, or poorly terminated, tissues may become less responsive to cortisol. So cortisol is actually present, but inflammatory control is weaker. So it's a paradox. And the point is not that cortisol causes inflammation, as a lot of times we hear in the media that cortisol is causing inflammation. Actually, resistance to cortisol that tissues develop is what causes inflammation. And when inflammatory control becomes less precise, the effects really can become systems wide. So yeah, this is here. I'm not sure if you can see it. It's probably it's a bit small, but this is the entire pathway what I have been talking about. Basically, there is a threat or demand, then the autonomic system is turning on the HPA axis. Why is the HPA axis? Because we are a lot of times activated by multiple triggers. So basically we do not come to the complete termination of the demand, and system is not coming back to the baseline. So cortisol signaling then becomes mistimed, poorly terminated. We end up having cells and tissues being unable to respond to cortisol, and the regulatory system of inflammation gets skewed. And this is where biology becomes clinically recognizable. So I'm again referring to the first person that I have presented to you at the very beginning. In a real life, failed recovery does not announce itself as failed recovery. It shows up as symptoms. So one person may present himself or herself to neurology with headaches, migraine, cognitive slowing, or sensory sensitivity, and another one may present itself to psychiatry due to anxiety, depression, and another one would go to a gastroenterologist, or they would have multiple different symptoms. So they will see more specialists. And we believe that it's not really 5 separate health problems. Different symptoms may be different outputs of the same impaired return physiology. Here what I want to stress is that stress itself is not harmful. because the body activates, it needs to activate, it's necessary. A healthy system needs to mobilize itself with focus, with energy, so that we would be able to meet the demand. But the difference is what happens after the demand passes. And the system needs to be able to downregulate the repair, to repair itself, to restore, and to recalibrate, what we have talked about. In other words, what we believe is that the recovery is basically the other part of adaptation. So the important question is not only how strongly did the body respond, it is also how did the body return. Now that brings us more into like a practical part. If return is a biological process, the question is if we can train it, if we can measure it, and if we can support it. This slide is preventing one common mistake, looking for one perfect recovery tool. And recovery has different jobs, as we said: termination, restoration, recalibration. So recovery training needs layers. So some tools reduce load before the challenge. Some, they shift the state in a moment. Some build capacity over time, like training. Some make recovery invisible through data, meaning like all the wearables that are available right now. And some add a more biological input. And this is where neuromodulation is gonna come in later. So so it's like the recovery training is not technique, it is a layered approach. So now let's make this maybe a little bit more practical. I've been talking for a while here, so before we talk more about training the return, let's try to notice if the state is something that we can observe. And let's check in now within your body. Like check your breath, check your jaws, check your shoulders, your posture, and your attention. And now rate your activation from 0 to 10. Tell me what is your activation right now? Or maybe show it to Vitalijus. He's gonna tell me the average number of the activation in the room right now.
Different numbers, but it's basically no tens. I see 6, 7, 5. Yeah.
Okay, so pretty the average activated. So we will try now to see the shift. You will have 45 seconds to solve the visual pattern task. And the point is not going to be to get it right, but to notice how the state that you are in changes and if it changes. So try during this task, try to pay attention to your breath, to your attention, to focus, and afterwards we're gonna try to rate again. Okay, you all ready?
Okay.
45 seconds.
If you can see it, because some people probably cannot see.
So they will need to come closer, they will get even more activated. Having an answer? We have 10 more seconds. Okay, we are done counting. Please recheck your body now. Recheck your state and maybe do a math right now, and from 0 to 10, show how much more you got activated by points. If you didn't get more activated, you can choose 0. Try to evaluate how much more activated you got trying to solve this task.
Yeah.
So it's values.
Not so much, like 1, 2.
But it's still a state change. Would you say that, the values?
Yeah.
Yeah? Okay. Anyone wants to reveal the correct answer?
I hope it's F.
Yeah.
F?
Yeah. Some people are saying F. Yeah? F.
I don't think it's that.
Other versions? B? So we have B version and we have F version.
Only F.
And B version also, B.
Yeah, the correct one is B, actually. You guys want to share why? Or maybe everyone can.
Well, black makes white, then...
Exactly. Okay, so after we got activated, now we move from feeling the state to feeling the state shift to asking how stress recovery could be measured. Sometimes it's not enough to say that I feel different or I feel the change. In science, especially, everything needs to be measured. That is here the curve, we want to present recovery kinetics as a measure of how we can describe the return after a stressful event over time. So two people may have a very similar stress response. The response, what I mean is to the trigger, different people would have can have very different stress response, and you can see that in this curve. So what we want to look at and describe is we want to see where is the state when where is the state when the person is starting with a challenge. We want to see what is their peak response to the challenge, and we also want to see what is their recovery slope, like how fast they are recovering from the challenge, and what is their time to the baseline, like how long their system is taking to calm down. And also we want to look into the completeness of the return, like after the demand, do you return completely or you're carrying the effects of the event further down the day. And these are basically the questions that we have been starting to rise. And then the question became like, if recovery is a curve, then what should we measure? And so if the recovery is a trajectory, measurement basically needs to capture time. So we need to know where the system starts, how strongly it mobilizes, how efficiently it downshifts, and whether it fully returns, and whether the return improves over repeated challenges. So different readouts help answer different parts of that curve. So, for example, heart rate, HRV, blood pressure, respiration, electrodermal activity, cortisol timing, sleep metrics, capacity measures, etc. So the point is not to measure everything for us, but the point is that recovery is not one biomarker and not one resting score. And it is a pattern across baseline, response downshift, residual load, and the next day state in a way. So, and if recovery is a biological trajectory we can measure, the next question is whether we can support that trajectory directly. So yeah, that brings me finally to the vagus nerve as one important body-brain pathway inside the broader recovery system.
Joanna, can we ask for the audience, just can you raise the hands, those who knows about the vagus nerve? Okay, so like, I don't know, majority, let's say. Do you know the function, like from the function point of view? Okay, so keep in mind that maybe we can go quicker, you know, in this science of the vagus nerve, because majority of people knows about it already.
Okay. And I'm wondering, maybe some of the people also worked with the research, maybe related to the vagus nerve?
Yeah, there are some of them, few people.
Amazing. Yeah, curious what they have been doing. Hopefully we can connect. Yeah, so basically one major body-brain pathway involved in regulation of recovery is the vagus nerve. Yeah, but before we go into it more deeply, I want to give like a bit clearer definition, because vagus nerve is a lot of times understood as a calming nerve. But yeah, two important things is that it's a mixed nerve, so it contains sensory fibers and motor fibers, and it's bidirectional. So a large part of the signal goes from the body to the brain, carrying information about the internal organs, and another pathway helps regulate the organ function from brain back to the body. The vagus nerve is one route inside wider recovery system. So if you remember in Act 2, we talked about recovery systems and what recovery consists of. So vagus nerve connects brainstem integration with autonomic balance, gut visceral sensing, endocrine timing, immune regulation, sleep recalibration. It's basically in the middle of all of the recovery trajectories, and that makes the vagus nerve and its pathway very useful for studying how body-wide recovery processes are coordinated. And the vagus is often described as I said, as a calming nerve, but actually, so like meaning, you know, that the information goes from the brain to the body, but it's actually the other way around. Much of the vagal signaling actually goes the other way, from the body to the brain, and carries the information from internal organs and their environment up to the brainstem. That matters for recovery because the brain needs to know the body's current state before it can coordinate the return. So the vagus is relevant because it helps the brain read whether activation is still present and whether the systems are ready to recalibrate. So yeah, here I connected vagus into the framework that we have overlooked so far. It is relevant for all three of the recovery processes. So for termination, the vagus is relevant for autonomic downshifting. For resolution, it's connected with neuroimmune regulation, and for recalibration, vagal afferents help carry body state information needed for sleep, interoception, gut signaling, and baseline regulation. So yeah, vagus nerve intersects with all systems required for recovery to complete. So now we move straight into neuromodulation. The question here is whether a defined stimulation input can shift physiology, since we have seen how vagus nerve is connected with all of the systems relevant for recovery. It's starting to be then probably interesting to see if neuromodulation can have any effects on recovery. So first, maybe let's clear the terminology, because DNS is not really one approach. At the top, you can see it's a broader field. It's electrical stimulation intended to influence vagal pathways. From there, it's divided into implanted VNS and non-invasive VNS. Within non-invasive VNS, there are two main routes here, and one is auricular stimulation, so we put it at the ear, and the cervical stimulation, which is placed at the neck. So pulsetto sits in the cervical VNS category. So that distinction matters because target site, tissue path, dose, and evidence base are different across all of these approaches. And before we talk about pulsetto specifically, I want to place VNS more into context. So vagus nerve stimulation has been an established field. It's not a new concept, and it has been studied for decades. It has also been different kinds of neuromodulation devices have also been FDA approved. So it's also a regulated field. But however, VNS evidence are not interchangeable. So different approaches, so different stimulations do not mean that they're affecting the body systems the same way. And I would like to go through, if we have time, still through a few studies. Just kind of see like the signal and what kind of different neuromodulation tools can do to the systems wide. So the first study tested cervical VNS during stress challenge and PTSD. It was a double-blind, randomized, sham-controlled study with 25 participants. They measured heart rate, PPG amplitude, and pulse arrival time, so mainly autonomic and vascular stress response signals. And with active tcVNS, heart rate decreased by about 5.7%, PPG amplitude increased by 30.8%, and pulse arrival time increased by 6.3% compared with sham. So that pattern is consistent basically with lower sympathetic arousal and a shift in the vascular autonomic regulation during stress exposure. And then there is another study that actually compared cervical and auricular stimulation in healthy adults, and the cervical stimulation was actually done with pulsetto. And the groups were small. Cervical stimulation had 9 participants, and with auricular and time control comparison groups, and they measured systolic blood pressure, low frequency systolic pressure variability, and EEG alpha activity. So with cervical stimulation, systolic blood pressure decreased from 134 to 120 millimeters of mercury. Low frequency blood pressure variability decreased from 17 to 7.8, and EEG alpha activity increased from 6.2 to 7.7 microvolts. So autonomically, this points towards more stable cardiovascular regulation, while the alpha increase adds to a brain state signal. So there are two important things here. So one being that cervical stimulation can move cardiovascular and cortical physiology, and that it also matters where we stimulate. Probably didn't mention that all of these effects have been seen not across all of the, not a lot in auricular and cervical, just in the cervical. So auricular didn't give any measurable effect. And to add to the picture and to a broader context, what has been studied with, for example, auricular transcutaneous vagus nerve stimulation, there was a study done, for example, in chronic insomnia, and it was also a randomized uncontrolled trial with 72 participants, and they have checked whether PSQI validated sleep scale changes. So at 8 weeks, the active group improved by 8.2 points compared with sham group that improved with 3.9 points. And another interesting one was in depression. It was a meta-analysis of 12 different studies with 838 participants, showed signals in depression scores and response rates as well. And overall, in the literature across non-invasive VNS studies, tolerability and safety studies are also done, and generally it's the intervention that's really generally good, acceptable, with like really mild effects that can appear. And the broader field shows signals in sleep, mood, and visibility. So the takeaway from the evidence so far is this: not all signals are the same. At this point, it is enough to say that vagal neuromodulation can work in general. And this is not a new field. There are many studies showing measurable effects across physiology, mood, sleep, and regulation. But the outcomes are not always the same across the studies. And that makes sense because the signal depends on the route, on parameters, the target, and the readout. So this explains why different studies can produce different outcomes across the field. And it also explains why each VNS platform needs platform-specific evidence. Now that we have went through recovery problem, looked at vagus nerve, overlooked neuromodulation, and how neuromodulation can perturb the physiology, I want to bring Pulsetto into the picture and tell you what we have been seeing so far, just get you familiar with our device. So Pulsetto itself is a wearable, non-invasive device worn around the neck. It delivers short stimulation sessions over the cervical vagal region. And the idea is to use cervical transcutaneous vagus nerve stimulation to support nervous system regulation. So after discussing the vagus nerve and the body-brain recovery pathway, Pulsetto is the practical neurotechnology example of that approach. This slide explains the basic mechanism. Pulsetto delivers electrical pulses through pads that it has on both sides of the device. Those pulses create an electrical field, and the field travels through the tissues, so like through the skin, the fat, the muscles, and a connective tissue. And the goal is to reach the cervical vagal region and modulate neural activity through field-based interaction. And this slide shows the model behind the stimulation. On the left, we see how electric fields spread through the neck with bilateral pads. On the right, you can see we compare the model field strength with published nerve fiber thresholds. So at the study dose, the model is consistent with engagement of myelinated sensory fibers, especially A beta and A delta. And these are the type of fibers that can carry body state information towards the brainstem. So now I would just briefly want to show you the current evidence that we have with pulsetto. We have how we have it summarized. So I would read it as 4 types of signal. The first study, I'm pretty sure you cannot see it, so I'll walk you through it. It's the first study that we have done, and it was done on stress, sleep, and anxiety. It was a pilot, and it was a randomized open-label comparative study of unilateral versus bilateral cervical stimulation with 4 weeks of at-home use. So the outcomes included mood, anxiety, and sleep, of like validated scales, and also hair biomarkers, cortisol and cortisol. So the main signal was cross-domain symptom improvement, and we also had a touch point at week 2. So how we saw the signals that people were improving and perceiving the improvement gradually. With cortisol and cortisone, what we have done is we have took the samples at the baseline and then at the 4 weeks. So cortisol decreased by 70% of participants, and cortisol by 62% for 62% of the participants, with a stronger downgrade in a bilateral group. And what was also interesting, additionally analyzing the data, was that people who were having a stronger response subjectively, they also had a bigger response in biomarker reduction as well. And then the second study we have already covered in Act 5, where we compared the auricular and cervical stimulation. So we have seen the changes in blood pressure and EEG alpha changes compared with the auricular stimulation. The third study done was a long COVID study. It was an exploratory pilot. It was uncontrolled, but with the 30 days use of pulsetto, the fatigue signal the fatigue symptom has improved, and we have seen it in facet F symptom measures as a validated scale. And then a fourth, it was an EEG study. It's still ongoing currently, but it measured brain electrical activity over time and translated the EEG signal into states in the index such as relaxation, arousal, anxiety-related state, and mental clarity. So the preliminary analysis, pulsetto showed an early brain state signal. So lower arousal, more relaxation, more clarity, and reduced anxiety-related pattern after use. So overall, message is this, that pulsetto has early signal across several recovery relevant domains. So it's stress, symptoms, sleep, anxiety, fatigue, autonomic, physiology, biomarkers, and EEG. And beyond these studies, we also looked at the real-world wearable data to see whether similar recovery patterns would appear. And we looked at users who maintained pulsator strike between 7 and 28 days and compared wearable derived metrics before and after use. So two signals really stood out, and first, it was deep sleep increased around 12 to 14 minutes per night in users reaching 21 and 28 days strike. And the second metric that stood out was RMSSD. It is an HRV metric that measures the short-term beat-to-beat variation between normal heartbeats. So it increased by 3.7 milliseconds at 28 days, which is relevant as an autonomic regulation signal as well. So after reviewing pulsator studies, this slide shows how the research program is getting structured at pulsator currently. So primarily, we still track, we still organize the studies around the primary indications. So, you know, like insomnia studies needs to have sleep endpoints, blood pressure studies need to have blood pressure endpoints, and so on. But in parallel, we can also try to collect shared recovery relevant readouts across studies. So HRV dynamics, blood pressure recovery, inflammation markers, cortisol patterns, sleep restoration, etc. So the main point is that each study answers its own clinical question, but together they also will help us build up the evidence around the recovery physiology. And this is how that structure maps into the upcoming pulsator research roadmap. So each planned study has its own clinical purpose. We're starting the studies in migraine, cluster headaches, insomnia, tinnitus, also blood pressure. What changes now is that we can design these studies with an added recovery layer from the beginning. So we will try to see not only did the symptoms improve, but also try to look if we can measure recovery biology. And this is what we're going to try to do. And we believe it's a way to test whether cervical VNS produces consistent recovery relevant signals across different clinical contexts. So this is the last slide from me of today. This is the main idea I want to leave you with. Stress is not only exposure. The key signal is recovery. Recovery can be observed, trained, measured, and supported through neuromodulation. Pulsator is one cervical VNS input being studied across relevant recovery relevant domains. So yeah, for me this is where neurotechnology becomes really interesting, and not only tracking stress and not only treating indications and symptoms, but also looking for the quieter signal underneath and whether the system is becoming better able to recover. And this is the recovery question that I think is really worth studying.
Thank you. Now we'll switch to this format. Yeah, cool. So yeah, Yona is, my speech will be much simpler, much to the ground, let's say. I am more business person, but of course the science is a big part of our, let's say, business. And Yona, I don't know, do you feel, but she is really have big passion, you know, in this topic, because this topic it can be quite new in general. I mean, the topic about stress science and etc. Before we will go to the more, let's say, back to the ground session, let's do some kind of reset. Do you like exercises in general? I have like several exercises. I just want to mix, not only to speak in monologue, but also to do some exercises. So one of the good tools to reset, I'm using it quite oftenly, is the technique of 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. The technique which is quite often used in anxiety, in panic attacks, and etc. Very simple technique. You will see it, I will explain it. Basically, you know, the main purpose is to change the state. And sometimes you can change the state very fast by changing the attention or by changing the focus, let's say, yeah? Because when you're in stress, usually stress tries to push you think about the future, yeah? And if you're coming back to the present, sometimes it can be good reset. You know, the stress itself didn't disappear, but the nervous system reaction to the stress, or let's say, can be a little bit different. So the technique is very simple. It's basically incorporating all your senses, yeah? And now each of us, let's try to see 5 different things, yeah? It can be computer, it can be your hand, your wall, whatever, no? Okay, now let's try to feel 4 different things. Maybe the pressure of your shoes, yeah? Maybe the pressure of your hand if you're sitting somehow and pushing the hand to your body. Maybe the pressure of your butt if you're pushing the chair, something like that, yeah? Now try to hear 3 things, yeah? It's not a silent. There are many voices outside. This TV is creating some kind of voice, yeah? I am speaking, of course. Now try to smell few things. Maybe your colleague perfume, maybe the air, yeah? And the last, try to taste something. Maybe the taste of your mouth, of your saliva, maybe the taste of your skin, yeah? So that's it. We took like, I don't know, we took like a 1 minute. Usually if you're running this cycle several times, you are switching the mode. It's not like a super magic thing, but sometimes, let's say just to run 3 times this kind of exercise, you know, switches your mode to the, let's say, from panic attack, from super stressful situation to more present situation, yeah? Coming back to the present. So, yeah, let's talk a little bit about the pulsata. Do you think that I am in stress right now? But I have some stress. It's normal. It's normal activity because I'm not speaking on daily level in Oxford, you know, and etc. So it's normal to feel the stress, yeah. And but I am always trying to match this like a sweet spot, like a perfect balance. Because if I would be too stressed, yeah, my thinking would be very narrow. I will lose the sharpness of the thoughts, you know, and etc. If I would be too relaxed, you know, you will see that I am lacking of energy, my eyes are not burning, you know, I don't have passion, you know, etc. So you need to find the balance, yeah? So this is the one thing. And the other thing, after this presentation, I need to, as fast as possible, bounce back from the stressful situation to the, like Jona told several times, to this normal state, yeah? So those 2 things are basically what Jona tried to explain in 1 hour. Yeah, this is stress resilience. When stress is not overwhelm you, but mobilize you, and you're finding this like a sweet spot. And then how fast you're recovering and bouncing back. Very interesting science. By the way, Jona didn't mention a few studies, but for example, there is one study which shows that if person has big stress resilience, and for example, big stressor is coming to his life. Let's say somebody is dying, yeah, somebody dead from his, let's say, relatives and etc. The effect on sleep is huge. And then the reverse situation. If, let's say, you have very strong stress resilience, not low, and somebody is dead, from your, let's say, relatives and etc., it's not affecting so much the sleep. The other very interesting study is about women which are going to the menopause. One more time, those women who have stronger stress resilience, the symptoms of menopause are much lower. Very interesting science. I think it will be a lot of new interesting things in the future. But the most important thing is that the world, the world is not becoming less stressful. This is the fact.
Yeah, can I ask a question? Is there sometimes people speak about healthy stress and unhealthy stress? Is that something you can use, or is it always about the recovery?
No, like I said, I mean, to find the sweet spot, because the stress mobilizes you, but the most important is that it will not too much, let's say, and then it cannot narrow your, let's say, thinking, etc. But stress in general, I mean, let's break the myth that it's like an enemy. It's a very good, let's say, factor in general, if you can control, if you can somehow, train it, and the most important part is not to reduce the stress or not to avoid, because it's impossible to avoid. The existing world will give us more and more stressors, yeah? The tempo, the technology, the wars, the global, the pandemics, etc. The most important is to have the bigger capacity. Yeah, because in the end of the day, I mean, we don't want to be like Zen monks, yeah? We want to handle more, yeah? We don't want to reduce or avoid stressors and etc. We just want to handle more life without breaking, yeah? And this is then the main point, that the world is not becoming less stressful, yeah? There are burnout epidemic, basically. Now I read the statistic that usually it's like a $1 trillion loss every year due to loss of productivity due to burnout, yeah? Chronic stress leads to many diseases. Now more and more data is coming up. From other side, there is a prediction that in 2030, so after 5 years, it will be 1 billion people who will wear some kind of wearable. Yeah, so it will be like a lot of data points, and a lot of notifications, reminders that you're in high stress, and etc. It will create even more stress, and etc. So the point is to increase the capacity, and currently the most majority of wellness, let's say, solutions, they teach to escape the stress. They teach to reduce the stress. They teach to somehow avoid the stress, and etc. But like I said, the main point is to increase the capacity. Imagine that it's like a bucket. Yeah, you have bucket, and you're putting the water in this bucket, and this water is like a stressors, yeah? So you have many stressors in your life. Your relationship, some kind of conflicts, traffic jams, financial things, a lot of milestones which you're not achieving, and etc. And you're putting this water, if the water is too much, then you're like burnouting and etc. And what people are doing, they're putting the holes in the bucket, yeah? They're trying to meditate, use, pulsetto, to do some supplements, some meditation apps, CBD, breathing exercises, a bunch of holes, yeah? But the problem is that the water, because of the current, let's say, world and life, and the tempo and etc., it's becoming bigger and bigger, and the holes is not enough. So better strategy is not to put as much holes as possible, but better strategy is to increase the bucket, yeah, the capacity. And this is what we wanted to say, that basically you can train this, and if you're looking to the stress as a muscle, as a comparison to like a physical muscle, you can also measure this muscle with some specific biomarkers. We mentioned several, and you can also increase this muscle. So by doing some specific things, yeah, you can train the stress resilience, and you can increase this capacity, so you can handle more. This is the most important part, because let's say high performers, they want to handle more, yeah, and I think the world is going to this area, to just try to handle more, So there are many solutions. Currently, most of them are quite fragmented. But for example, let's say trackers currently just track, yeah. They are giving some suggestions, but basically just tracking and informing you that you are bad sleeper or high stress and etc. The pharma things, they're basically suppressing the stress. They're not like solving the main issue, and plus there are many side effects of Xanax usage and etc. I personally also used Xanax when I was 29, so 12 years ago, so I know how it means to lose the control over your nervous system when you cannot sleep without Xanax and etc. It's quite addictive, let's say. Electricity somehow is not addictive. There are other solutions. I would say meditation apps, or meditation in general is very nice, but needs very consistency, a lot of practice, like silent room, lotus pose. It's hard. We have many customers who are coming because they're saying that I cannot meditate because it's hard for me. It seems very strange, but in reality, it's not easy. It's not just to be in silent. Yeah. So those solutions are quite fragmented. We have our own solution. Let's say we are like a dumbbell, yeah, in this stress fitness area. Is it possible with a dumbbell to build a muscle? It's possible, but there are other ways how to do it. So we want to be like a training system. We want to give the training system, not only dumbbell, and maybe other instruments near the dumbbell. Currently we have dumbbell, but you will see on our app we are doing really interesting things with the data. So basically this is what we have. It's a wearable device. Creating electric stimulation. Currently we have 8 different electric signals encoded in the firmware. You need to apply a little bit amount of conductive gel currently still. The new version of the device probably will be without gel. I will give you information more. And it's connected with app. So without app it's not working, and it's very strategical part of our, let's say, business, because on the app side we are doing a lot of things. I will explain, but we are collecting the data. We are giving now more and more personalizations, and etc. So yeah, we are quite young company. This October it will be 5 years of our existence, but very successfully growing. We have 340,000 users already in the world. Majority of them are in US. Canada, Australia, some of them are in UK, but US is let's say the main market. And yeah, this is our probably summary of our business. We are growing triple 4 years in a row. But this slide basically brings a lot of blood and passion and hours and etc. To grow triple, let's say 2 years in a row when you're small, to grow let's say from 3 million euro to 10 million euro, it's one game. But when you're going from 35, let's say, or million euro to 100, it's totally different game. It's like chaos everywhere, supply chain everywhere, So we are growing currently 4 years in a row triple. I read somewhere that there are like 1% of companies who are doing this, like 4 years, because mathematics is very hard becoming, and etc. And but we are just on the starting, let's say, edge of this stress science, and currently all the profit and etc. we are reinvesting in the future studies, in the R&D, and it's quite a heavy business because we are doing hardware and software. So it's working capital, a lot of stuff, and also part of the you need always to innovate, and etc. So currently it's a wellness device, but we already applied for both and US FDA and Europe MDR for medical device, different conditions based on those studies which Joanna showed previously. So on US, on FDA, we are applying on cluster head pain. We have real world evidence about it. Plus we are following the existing path, because there is already devices who are doing neck stimulation and they have migraine and cluster head pain treatment as a condition. for Europe, we're applying for stress-related anxiety due to our studies with cortisol and etc. So it's process, it's not easy, but it's not only about the studies, by the way, it's also about cybersecurity, about data, this GDPR. We already created like a separate medical app, which is quite similar, but it's more like strict on the data protection, etc. It's the clinical evidence is one of 9 things what you need to give to the, let's say, to the FDA or whatever, with all those documents which you're bringing. Basically, you are not certifying the product, you're certifying the company. It's quite a challenging process, but the medical team, I think, they are doing quite a good job, and of course we have consultants and etc. So currently I think we can really unlock the future because generically there are many studies about the vagus nerve stimulation, and Joanna mentioned that it's also related with inflammation. It's some relation with gut-brain axis because it's the main pathway. So there are many, let's say, possible opportunities. Currently, for example, we are speaking with one of the biggest microbiome fund in Europe, and probably they will invest in us, which means that strategically probably we will go more and more about some kind of IBS or gut-brain type of things and studies, because they have a bunch of portfolio companies in different areas of let's say microbiome, but there are a lot of other areas. Let's say blood pressure. It's a huge area. It's an amazingly huge area. We have very small evidence about the blood pressure, but we cannot do everything. This is the fact of the startup. You cannot do everything. You need to focus, and this will be probably the hardest job, especially in the clinical world. With clinical, currently we are running several different studies. We have our own studies. It's bioethics, huge time, huge money, and etc. Then we are running collab studies. So, for example, this study which compared the ear and neck was done by American Medical Association. So they run all those bioethics and etc. And then we have IRB studies. We got a certification because database is quite big. So we have, like I mentioned, 340,000 users. So we can give for those users some kind of wearables and give some protocol, and then based on their, let's say, response, we can make the conclusion. Very similar like Whoop is doing with blood pressure currently. He's measuring on his, let's say, user database the prediction of the blood pressure. He's not measuring the blood pressure, but based on your primary things like sleep and etc., he's predicting the blood pressure, and with a big amount of samples, he can make the, let's say, clinically valid conclusions. So IRB is quite fast and, of course, cheap way of studies. So this is last year we got certification for this, and so I think it will be also some speed up in this area. So yeah, this is example about the microbiome. I think we will go deeper, especially with this previously mentioned fund investment. Regarding the products, basically, so every year we are launching the new version of wellness product. It's like our R&D concept is like it's like Apple. Every year, small improvement, not like every 5 years like huge, but every year small improvement. So for example, this is the second generation product. Main, let's say, okay, it's more durable, the battery longer, etc. But the main advantage is that you can put this magnetic padding, because it was, yeah, it's funny, but we targeted US and we thought that the main problem will be the big necks, but in reality, it was some women, especially with a tiny necks, and the main advantage that you can hands-free use this device. You can be in the meeting, you don't need to hold it, etc. But with tiny necks, the device is like this, and then you need to or hold somehow or to put something. I mean, it's not comfortable. It was like 3-4% of users with the tiny necks. So this magnetic padding decreased the size, and now basically, I don't know, like 99% of necks are fitting. The next generation, the V3. Which is blue, this V3, basically the main point also, it will be like a better button, touch screens, and etc. But the main point we are working on is the gel-less solution, because gel is like additional, like a step, like a friction, and users are saying, oh, we will use more if it will be like just put and etc. It's not easy because a lot of electric let's say, I don't know, echoscopes or whatever, they're also using this gel, as a conductor. But we have already working prototype. We will see. There is some limitations. For example, people with beard, probably they will need to use some gel, but we will see. It will be probably like a 90% gel-less, and then V4 the next year probably will have like a fully.
When do you wear it? Is it during the activity or during the recovery?
Yeah, it's during activity. The typical user is wearing like 30 minutes before sleep. This is like a most usable advantage. For example, we are working with athletes, a lot with athletes. Athletes, they are not wearing before the game, because before the game you want to be in this other state, in fight and flight. You want to be adrenaline mode. You want to go and dominant, yeah? But after the game, the typical basketball player, I can say, what is the typical basketball player? Typical game is like, I don't know, 6-8 p.m. He is, before it, drinking 2 espresso, just for the energy. And after the game, he has a bunch of heat in the body, and etc. Social jet lag, because he wants to check the highlights and etc. The comments and etc. And then caffeine still in the body, and then they're going to sleep 3 a.m. Plus, in some cases, they need to travel, jet lag, blah, blah, blah. So, I mean, shit recovery in general. So they're using after as a tool, as a let's say, program for the recovery, not before. And then separately we will have medical device as a separate unit. It will be like visually similar, but like I said, it will be like a separate device with a separate app, and etc. When we will receive this medical device status, and probably we are planning this also this year. So this is V3 Blur. Brand manager said, please Blur, because it's not still official, But July, we are planning July to launch it already. This is what we are doing with the app. So currently, one of the big features on our product that you as a user, you can integrate your wearables. We integrated 10 wearables. So if you're wearing any of those big guys like Aura, Whoop, Garmin, Apple, and 6 others, you can, if you're allowing, we can extracting all the data from those users. Because what we realized that whenever, user, he cannot measure cortisol on daily level, yeah? He cannot measure alpha brain waves. He cannot measure blood pressure or whatever. He will trust more and more the things what he's wearing, and like I said, 1 billion people will wear those kind of devices, yeah? So we realized that our clinical life must go like a separate, yeah? We need to continue to do this, but for the typical user, even if he will publish, 10 PubMed studies, he will say, oh, but I'm totally different. I am personal, I need to see on myself that is really improving, etc. So that's why we have this integration, and now basically from those 340,000 users, 70,000 users connected their wearables, and we see that those who connected, they are much more engaged. They are much more active users because they see the direct input. And now, last week, we launched Stress Resilience Index, the score, from 1 to 100, especially for those users who connected their wearables. We are taking the data, heart rate variability, respiratory rate in some cases, and then calculating like a score from 0 to 100. Yeah. So this is the future, that we want to like update the score constantly, like every week, and then to give like a very personal protocols. Yeah. If you're like a low score, medium, or high score, what to do? Not only with vagus nerve stimulation, not only with pulsator, but with other things which can affect the let's say stress resilience. But those biomarkers are, by the way, biomarkers are one of the main biomarkers of measuring your, let's say, stress muscle. So currently on the app we have already AI who is analyzing this. We for example, also this week we launched first personal notifications, because we see those users who connected their wearables, we see when their heart rate is elevated, it's not always the stress, but I mean, we can send like in 5 minutes period the message, like a notification that maybe your stress, we see that your stress could be elevated, please put pulsetto on. So this is where we are going with this closed loop system, you know, because we want to have, because wearables, like I said, they're just giving like a data, yeah, for you, but we want to have the tool, you know. Imagine that you're wearing, I don't know, your Whoop, and then Whoop in the end of the day is saying, look, you had very stressful day in general, yeah, please use, for example, pulsetto, please use whatever else, something else, you know? It can be the closed loop, because now I think this is the missing part. What to do, you know, what to do if you had bad sleep, you know, what to do if you are like a stressor, and etc. So yeah, so this is big part of our product development. And some wearables like Whoop, they have two ways in integration. This is very nice. So for example, if you're wearing Whoop, it's already now saying meditation, still he's saying meditation via pulsetto. Let's say it's my data. So 8 minutes, stress decreased by 0.5. They are calculating based on their metrics, but also related with the heart rate. But it's immediate feedback for the user that it's giving you some kind, of course, the heart rate is decreasing, and this is probably. But also, if you're wearing it consistently, they are measuring the impact to the recovery, like adding like 3%, and then they are putting you as a meditation pulsetto tool with alcohol, with, I don't know, high intensive interval training, with other bunch of good and bad things. So this is the way how, let's say, users, we see that they trust more this data than clinical data, but of course the clinical data is super important, because, you know, it can open a lot of interesting areas. So what I want to mention that and I mentioned several times that it's a dumbbell, but there are many other ways how you can build stress resilience. One of the ways is to be in the stress, in the stress in general, to feel normal in the stressful situation. Big stressors are high intensive interval training. There is a data that if you are constantly in the high intensive interval, periodically, you can change those biomarkers like heart rate variability, and respiratory. And by changing these biomarkers, you can build this kind of muscle or let's say resilience, and etc. Then cold and heat exposures, also big stressors, especially when, for example, when you're coming to the sauna or cold, then all your biomarkers are you know, changing, like your heart rate is increasing, your blood pressure is increasing, but when you're going out from this, it's dropping to the lower than baseline area. Fasting, time restricting eating, it's also big stressors. Also can really, if you're doing it constantly, it can affect those things. Some breathing exercises, also it's a part, especially if you're talking about respiratory rate. With breathing exercises, with consistent breathing exercises, you can really affect your respiratory rate. You can decrease respiratory rate, and the lower the respiratory rate, it's usually better. So there are other ways, not only the vagus nerve stimulation. Vagus nerve stimulation is part of it, but I want to say that there is like other topics, other let's say areas, and we want to those protocols and let's say maybe future products combine in this area. We want to own the category of stress resilience. We want to be like the leaders, and of course the vagus nerve stimulator will be like a hero core product, but it will be other solutions or some kind of like a very specific personal protocols in those topics that I mentioned previously to you. Very small exercise, okay, if you have a few minutes more. It's an exercise how you can improve your respiratory rate. It's a BOLT score. Do you know the BOLT score? No. It's a blood oxygen level test. It's a score from Buteyko method. Very interesting, by the way, method. I'm official instructor of Buteyko. I'm not practicing like personally, but I certified. So score. This exercise is very simple. It's not a game of will. Yeah. So what we will do, we will take a breath and breathe in and breathe out, and then we will try to keep without breathing, you know, you'll pinch the nose, you know. So, but the point is to, and I will calculate the seconds, the point is not to be as much as possible without breath, but when you feel the first notice that it's not good for you, yeah? Something is happening in your body. Maybe saliva is pressing you, maybe it's some kind of tension in the body. So the first moment when you feel not comfortable, yeah? So let's try to do it. Now I just need to put the clock. So let's synchronically. And let's pinch the nose, yeah? And I will calculate the time. So we have 5 seconds. The first moment when you feel not comfortable, 10 seconds. 20 seconds. 30 seconds. Okay, how many of you went to the 30-second line? Nice. How many of you in 10-second line? I think it was like a 15, something like that. Yeah. 20 seconds? Yeah, okay. So basically, you see, basically if you have like 30, you're super. I mean, your respiratory system, let's say, works very nice. If you have 20, 30, it's quite normal. If below 20, you can improve. What is very interesting with this score, you can do it as a measurement of your progress. And one of the, let's say, simplest way how to improve this, because the bigger this, probably the lower respiratory rate you have. Typical person has like a 12, 16 breath-ins and breath-outs per minute. If you have asthma, you have 20 plus. So your breathing is more shallow, yeah? So the lower is the better. So the bigger the score, it's a very direct correlation between the score and the lower respiratory rate. One of the best exercises, how to improve the score, is when you're walking, just also breathe in, breathe out, and then try to count the steps, but as much as possible how you can be without breath. Very interesting exercise, because there is even formula that if, for example, you have like a 20-30, you have like a, you can do 40 steps approximately. If you have like a 30 seconds, you can do like a 50 plus steps, you know, etc. By doing this consistently, this walking exercise, you will see that in the beginning, maybe I had only 20 steps. But if I'm doing it like for 1 week, you see that's 25 steps already, 27. And by increasing the steps, I guarantee that you will increase the score. And by increasing the score, you will drop the respiratory rate. So this is one of the ways how also you can train the stress resilience, is by specific breathing exercises or specific, let's say, exercises who trains the breathing, let's say, system. Yeah. So this is not only about the vagus nerve stimulation, but breathing activates also there is like a direct correlation, but it's not only about the electric, let's say, stimulation devices and etc. So yeah, so currently we are like a device. Today we are a device, tomorrow we want to be like a nervous system training. We believe that we can do like I don't know how to say, emotional endurance, yeah. And this is the future where we're going, related with the data, related with probably new products, with the development of the current signal and the current product, with more clinical studies and etc. So basically this is what we are really searching. We are searching the people who really also want to join this, like, let's say, this mission, because we want to educate the market and the world about the importance of this. We really believe that it's not, I mean, everybody teaches to escape the stress and etc., but it's this old paradigm, you know. The new paradigm is to increase the capacity and to handle more, you know. And you can do it. Everyone can measure this, you know. Everyone can increase the stress resilience, and with better stress resilience, you know, it will be much better for you, you know, because in the life I guarantee that you will have more and more stressors. So we are really searching in the different categories. We are currently will search some advisors in the science field. So it's interesting topic. We are always searching for the clinical collapse. I mentioned several studies were not we done, but let's say we just produced the products and some protocols and etc. But everybody was run by others. And also fundraising it's part of our game, and it will be always part of our game because, like I said, it's R&D, it's clinical, it's a heavy investments, and let's say sometimes the profit or whatever is not enough to cover those kind of things. So if you have any interest in those, let's say, areas and etc., just connect, and thanks for your attention. I hope it was a little bit practical, a little bit theoretical, but with deeper understanding about this topic, and you felt this, let's say, passion and drive that we have in this area. So thank you very much for listening. Thanks.
So I think we have time for a couple of questions. Please make sure to pass the mic around. So maybe if you'd like to start.
Hi. Is it working?
Go.
Okay. Lots of questions. Thank you. Okay. First question is: do you have any hypothesis about like what's the time scale of the effect of this tech? Like, is it immediate? Is it like half an hour, or like how would you say the time scale also wears off?
Yeah.
What's the optimal window?
Yone, you are here?
Yes, I'm here. Hi.
Can you hear the questions, by the way, or no?
I can. So the question was that if we have any, maybe repeat, like it was versus acute and long-term use, right? Like, do we have separate data, evidence basis for that, or did I misheard?
Basically, I think we can answer in two questions. One is how long it takes to use, let's say, electrostimulation in order to activate, and then how long, let's say, after the stimulation the effect can last.
Okay, so to answer the question, the first question is that we have done different kind of experiments and studies so far. So, for example, when we want to see improvements across different kinds of symptoms, we are seeing a cumulative effect. Like, we are seeing that the more people are using falsetto, the better the outcomes are produced. So like it has a cumulative effect of using falsetto. Also, what you have seen when I was sharing the real world evidence data, we're also looking for strikes. So like the longer people are using it, we're seeing then the effects are starting to show itself. However, we are also currently investing more time in looking into the immediate physiology. And that was also the study with the blood pressure that I have told you about. That was a study that was done just like with a protocol of like 5 minutes, 1 minute break, 5 minutes, 1 minute break, 5 minutes, 1 minute break, and then measured, like blood pressure was measured and EEG was measured. Also, this other study that we're doing with the EEG only, we are also looking into the immediate effects and seeing that immediately we are also seeing the signal. So it means like blood pressure is dropping. We're seeing that EEG activity is also, like for example, increasing in alpha brain waves, and also like different kinds of arousal patterns are happening within the EEG. So yeah, to answer the question, to kind of summarize it, we are collecting the evidence on both streams, basically.
And the lasting effect?
Yeah, like just to finish. So what happens when people are using it long term, and also what happens when like immediately.
And the second part of the question regarding the lasting effect.
Yeah, and a lasting effect we haven't yet studied. So that is on our protocols currently that we're currently running. We're going to be starting to run the studies on migraine and cluster headaches. So these ones have also a 3-month prolonged open label plan, so that we would see the follow up as well. So these are now starting to kick in.
Yeah. Okay. Some other questions?
Thank you.
Okay.
I have kind of biology question. As far as I understand, your device works fully avoiding C fibers in the vagal nerve, but so single cell data, for example, has shown that those make up about 80% of like the vagal nerve, and they're major mediators, say, of like nociception and inflammation. And obviously, it's a good thing that you don't target them because you could have side effects like chronic pain, etc. But at the same time, they seem to be really important, right, for all that stress response and recovery. So is that something that you're trying to work on, or not really? You're just kind of avoiding that?
So C fibers, they are unmyelinated, so they are really difficult to target with non-invasive approach. So I don't know what's going to be possible in the future. Also, currently the 3D vagus nerve mapping is happening, like trying to map each fiber and trying to understand its responsibility and where it goes. So I don't know what the future is going to bring. Currently, Pulsetto is staying in a non-invasive field, and we are mainly activating alpha, like A fibers and fibers within that, within that area.
Cool, thank you.
Thanks. That was really interesting. A few questions, actually, just to bridge off of that one. Okay, now I'll ask my first one. What was the rationale behind the bilateral design? Is it a usability thing, or is it actually that bilateral stimulation is more effective? Because I've only seen studies targeting the left, and for that I don't know why either.
I will answer from Poliana's side, because my co-founder, it was his idea. He worked with implantable devices before. So it's a uniqueness part. We have patents for this, and also we had one study we explained with cortisol, and we measured the bilateral and lateral side, and it was more efficient. But for example, paradox is that when we are trying to receive FDA, we are trying to say that we are very similar to the lateral, because the process is much faster. So this is like always balancing the business and let's say the patents and etc. But yeah, I mean it's efficiency and the speed of the activation of the nerve.
Is it direct current? Are you allowed to, is it direct current, or is it a pulse, or is it?
And what frequencies are we talking?
The bilateral? It was on the slide. Jona, you can comment a little bit about the frequencies and
I can look at it later. I might have just missed it.
Yeah. By the way, we will share the slides if it will be interesting.
We'll post it in the group chat.
Yeah.
Yeah. Here, first of all, thank you for the talk. I was just, because I've been reading about vagal stimulation and also this auricular that kind of aims to the ear. Given that, like, there's a couple of structures in the neck, even sympathetic ganglion, like a big sympathetic cervical ganglion is there. I was wondering if have you also studied what happens in the sympathetic ganglion, or how do you make sure that the stimulation, because you have like a little branch on the ear, and I get there is like a lot of precision there, but in the cervical region, how do you make sure that the electrical stimulation also goes to underside structures, if that makes any sense?
So, and do you hear how we?
It's hard for me to hear. I'm sorry.
So the question was that comparing with the ear, how we know that we are going to the right spots, yeah, let's say in the neck area. Because with ear it's very simple, it's a tragus, it's very like clear pathways. So how we are, let's say, measuring the activation of the neck?
Yeah, so what we have done is, so we are currently working with Vienna University, also with a professor that previously has built a venture in auricular vagus nerve stimulation. So like he has been in the field for decades, and yeah, he is helping us to modulate to kind of like modulate and see what strength of electricity is needed and how the field needs to be created to be going through, so like to have the signal going through. And of course, for every person it's going to be a little bit different because the constitution is different. But what we have measured so far is that the person needs to go to the level, because like you can later on play with the device yourselves. You can measure actually the strength, like how strong you go. So from the middle part, so like at level 5, the calculations have been showing that like the sensory fibers are definitely activated. And then if the person has a bigger constitution, that person would be just using the device at the higher level, and this is how we are ensuring that everyone is reaching the threshold of activation of vagus nerve.
So I just want to add, we have 9 intensity levels on the device. You can regulate on the app, and this study mentioned, it will be publication from this Austria university. It will be quite big. Publication still cannot, let's say, open everything, but he one of the best, let's say, professors in the vagus nerve field probably in the Europe. And the other thing, very important, that theoretically it's not like, it's not like a one cable, it's like a network. The vagus nerve is like 160K plus fibers. So like, say roughly 60% of them are on the neck. Ear has like 20% of the neck. So it's much more, let's say, much more targeted space here on the neck.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you.
Is anyone else?
No.
Hey. You mentioned the potential of closed loop integration.
Yeah.
I'm curious, do you think this form of stimulation is like strong enough to effectively combat a panic attack in an acute situation, for example?
I think, but we have a bunch of customers. In the beginning, the first customers were those biohackers. Healthy people, they wanted to optimize something like HRV, and etc. But now, like a majority of our database is how to say, sick people. It's not like you feel normal. They have issues, or they have panic attacks, or they have burnout, or they waking up in the middle of the night and they cannot sleep anymore, or they cannot sleep because of racing minds, etc. And we see from the comments and the user cases and etc. that it's helping. Will it help for everybody? Probably no. Like, I don't know, Xanax is not helping for 100% or whatever. Pharma is like, I think efficiency is like a 70%, something like that. So the same is with electricity. Electricity is also not a magic stick in all cases. But I see from my comments from the users, that it's really helping, especially with these higher situations like panic attacks or migraine, for example. It's very clear. It's disappearing or no? Yeah. When you're speaking about, I don't know, stress or whatever, it's still subjective until you cannot measure something. Yeah. But with those kind of conditions, it's very clear. Is it helping or is it not? So yeah, we really believe that it's a good way. Of course we need to improve the signal, the data, and etc. But it's a part.
Just to maybe add to what Vitalijus was also saying, is that, you know, you need to be very, very, very bad to get an implantable vagus nerve stimulator. So, and these have been already approved by FDA. Like for example, for major depression, if you have treatment-resistant depression, you can get an implantable VNS, but you need to be incredibly bad. But what it shows that, hey, it works. And people do get better. This is how they got approved. And so we are like investigating heavily by ourselves now if it's possible to help people that are maybe not that bad. They don't maybe they're not that bad to get the operation, but they would still like profit from perturbing the nerve, because the signal, it has been shown that you need to perturb the nerve, you need to activate it, you need to get the tone of vagus nerve activated. And this is what we are currently working on.
And I also want to add, we are speaking, and it's a very interesting company, Setpoint Medical. They have implantable device, and they just had FDA approval to treat. They are putting implants near the bladder, very specific fibers of the vagus nerve. And you need to understand, implantable, they are targeting much specifically than non-invasive devices, So they are targeting very specific, like 1,000 of vagus nerve fibers who are responsible for acetylcholine releasement, inflammation pathways, and now they have approval to treat arthritis, But the problem with implantable, that there are a lot of patients who, they are like they're not suitable for those implants, and it's a huge cost, and etc. But, for example, maybe one of our roles can be that we can predict those who are better responders. And how we can predict? With the data, Because we see when the people is, and especially those who connected the wearable, we see when he is stimulated, And in the long game and long data, let's say, data sets, we will see those guys who will respond better, because there are people who will respond better to the vagus nerve stimulation. And maybe we can be like I don't know, like a pre-screener for the implantable devices. Could be also one of the directions of our future, if we will help, let's say, to decrease, I don't know, the cost or whatever for those people who cannot have implants.
Thank you. This is more slightly of a challenge. Do you think that there's any effect of the app and getting all this data and kind of overloading your users with all this data that maybe some of them won't understand necessarily, and then the notifications, you need to go to bed earlier, like a lot of the wearables do it already. Do you think that contributes to this massive bucket of stress that everyone's experiencing more and more on the daily?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, but we are not trackers, and we will not be trackers. We just want to help people who tracks. But of course, I mean, the trackers and the wearables will create this problem that I have bad sleep, and even in some professional athletes teams, they are not allowing the athletes to see the data because it can create like a placebo type of effect, Before important game, you will see that you have bad night's sleep, and then it's affecting your psychology and etc. But it will be the problem for sure, But this is the point, that we need to have this closed loop. We need to give the tool, if the person saw that it's all bad,
But at the moment, can you use it without the app and without getting all the data?
Yeah.
Yeah, you can.
I mean,
so
without the app, you cannot use that, but you can use without wearable integration,
Yeah, without.
And this is where we are going also, because we understand that not all people will have wearables. Currently, I think 40% of U.S. citizens have, but there are other ways. For example, face reading. There is already FDA-approved devices who can, let's say, take a photo before the stimulation and also measure your heart rate and etc. And after the photo, or voice recognition. Just, for example, we tested one face reading company, FDA-approved company, and we put Mickey Mouse photo, and it showed the heart rate of Mickey Mouse. So it's not working super. I mean, always with the data is like with bikini. It shows you a lot, but not everything. So you need to understand this. But it will be. We will integrate more things for sure, for those, especially as alternative for those who cannot have, let's say, wearables or whatever.
All right, let's do one last question.
Okay. Have you had any results with chronic fatigue? And is it advised? I have two questions. And is it advised device for chronic fatigue? That's my first question.
Fatigue?
Chronic fatigue.
Chronic fatigue. Jana, can you?
Is this the best?
Can you add? Sorry?
Can you please repeat the question?
Is it related with the chronic fatigue? Yeah.
Yeah. Is it useful for chronic fatigue?
And is it useful for chronic fatigue?
And have you had any results?
And do we have some kind of data or results, or in general, let's say generic, studies about vagus nerve stimulation and chronic fatigue?
Yeah, so that's one of the studies that I have mentioned when I was presenting Placeto data. We have done a pilot with 30 patients with long COVID. And we have been evaluating on different kinds of scales. One of them was 5-6, so like generalized fatigue. And people have been scoring like throughout the weeks measurably. So if you're curious, maybe for research purposes, I could send you the information about like all of the numbers that we have got, that we have had so many questionnaires, but like the main signal was basically showing that like every week the person every week people were perceiving their symptoms as recovering, like feeling better. And it also makes sense in a way, like when we were talking about autonomic dysregulation during long COVID, for example. It also makes sense, like perturbing the vagus nerve that has anti-inflammatory, like it sits in the middle, like of so many recovery systems. It makes sense, like to us that it works, and we are also planning right now. It's not our focus, but like we would love to have RCT with the long COVID patients because. Fatigue after COVID hit has escalated incredibly, and there is nothing that currently the people are getting as a treatment. And it's a small signal that we have right now, but something that we have researched. We have started researching.
Thank you. My second question is there any discount for seminar attendees?
Yeah.
Sorry.
Also, I think we will send, but we have in one slide, I think, some kind of code. Yeah. The last slide. That's last slide. Yeah, but the last slide. Where is this last slide? Here. Okay. So this is the code. Yeah. You can make this QR or insert Oxford in the checkout. It will be additional 24 sterling discount. Thanks. To be honest, I need to go to the Luton airport, and my driver is somewhere. He called already.
Some final notes. So first of all, thank you for coming. So we will share the slide deck in our group chat. If you're not part of the group chat and you want to be added, let me know. And also if you want to join either the Biohacking Society or the Neurotech Society, there is representatives as well as the society today, so approach us and feel free to stick around for networking. Thank you.
The code is not working. We will send the exact range that it's not working.
Thank you guys. I'm sorry I did not see you all. But please, if you have any questions regarding our research or anything, I would love
but you need the app.
you and
You can get the app. You can download it for free. The app. You just need to log in. I just need to go right now. But I can leave the device.
I don't have the app. I don't want to
The point is, I will show you how to use it. You just need to open the app, to put the gel on the electrodes or direct on the skin, it's up to you. Currently, like I said, it's still the gel. And then when you will make this login and etc. Sorry?
Do you have the app? Any chance to try it now?
No, try it. So there is like 8 different programs, but let's try the stress. It's scanning, it's connected, and now in couple, your neck is one.
It's not American one.
Skinny one.
Wow.
And this is the level 3, and you can play.
It is strong.
The level 1, but what we saw that it's not enough to activate the fibers in this Austrian study right now.
Wow.
But level 9, for example, it's very hard. Even the lip dip is going. Lip dip is one of the biological signs. Like a saliva, if saliva is existing in the mouth, it's also the sign because it's a reference gel, so it's part of this. But do you want to try it? It can be some delay. It will come after a couple of seconds.
Yeah.
Too strong?
Do more.
It will be very. Just a second.
Just make it more.
Okay,